So today is our third class.
Yes.
Okay, today is our third class on educational psychology, and today we're going to talk about cognitive development in educational psychology. So that's the main motto of our today's lesson, and the subtitle is Advanced Concepts, Applications and Challenges. So today we are going to be talking about the cognitive development in educational psychology and its basic concept and advanced concepts also, and applications. That means how should it be applicable to our educational systems, and then challenges, what kind of challenges we may face in order to apply those theories in our real life situations or real life education. Am I clear to you?
Yes.
Am I audible to the last bench? Can you hear me, Anto? That's right, great. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So, introduction to cognitive development. Definition of cognitive development. I would really suggest if you take notes.
Yes.
Okay, so the definition of cognitive development is the study of mental process involved in acquiring, processing and storing information. Most important thing, there are three things basically we are talking about. Number one is acquiring. That means first we acquire something, then in our cognitive development in our brain we process that thing, and then we store information in our memory. So basically first by our senses we acquire an information, then we process in our brain, inside our brain, and then we store that information. That means we memorize those information. Yeah, that's right. That's the definition. If you'll be asked in your midterms or your finals, please give the definition of cognitive development, or what is cognitive development. You'll be writing at least that, or more than that. They are available at your smartphones. Yeah, that's right, in Google. Okay, no problem of it. Okay, so the importance. Okay, so the importance of cognitive development, why it is important. So basically it serves as the foundation for designing age-appropriate curricula. Curricula means many curriculum. Okay, curricula, and understanding diverse learners. So basically in educational psychology we deal with the psychology of the learners, basically to make some curriculum for you, or make some curricula for you, for them, sorry, not for you, for them, so that they learn effectively. So in order to learn effectively, appropriacy is important, and appropriacy comes with age appropriacy. So it basically deals with educational psychology, because each and every learner are different, and each and age group of a learner are different. So that's why this cognitive development, this educational psychology, and this whole thing is basically important. Well, is that correct? Great. Okay, so focus area are memory, language, problem solving, reasoning, metacognition. Well, memory, we all know that. Language, basically language learning. In here we are talking about memory, we all know that. Language is language learning. Then problem solving, basically analytical ability. Problem solving refers to the context of analytical ability. That means mathematical analytical ability, maybe, or analogy of words, or maybe some psychometrics, just like psychometrics. Okay, so the reasoning basically, reasoning means logic. Reasoning means
Logic.
That's right. So reasoning means logic. All those cognitive development, basically all these things are these cognitive developments within the cognitive developments periphery. Okay, so the metacognition also. The metacognition means beyond cognition. That means not only the logic, basically beyond the logic also. Okay, meta means beyond. So So for example, understanding how cognitive development informs adaptive learning technology. For example, yes sir?
I'm not clear with the term age appropriate curricula. It differentiates the specific age.
Well sir, well. So thanks for your question. That means if I want to learn a nursery boy English, I would help him. I will make him make his curriculum. I will develop his syllabus and develop his material in his appropriate age. I will not say to him or her that you should watch the cinema named Lord of the Rings, Return of the Kings. No, I would rather say you sing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. That's right. So basically it's his age appropriate. I will make him learn or her learn Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are. That's right. So, but I would never ever tell these all things in your classroom. Why? Because of your age. You already know that A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yes. So there's no point of it. See, age appropriacy is important. It's important for all of you, especially for the last bench boy who was smiling some time ago, and the girl behind him also, I mean in front of him. So it's basically the age appropriacy is important. That means in which age you belong. I have to make your syllabus, your curriculum, your materials, classroom materials, your age appropriate. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G for playgroup or nursery kids, and then Lord of the Rings, Return of the Kings for you guys. Just a material. See? So that's what I'm talking about. Oh, great. You have asked a great question. No problem with it. Okay, so let's get back to the boys. Come on, let's get back to the business. So, understanding how cognitive development informs adaptive learning. Oh my goodness. Okay. Understanding how cognitive development informs adaptive learning technologies. So, for example, AI-driven personalized education tools. So, nowadays we have ChatGPTs. So, ChatGPT is an AI-based personalized educational tool. So, understanding how cognitive development informs adaptive learning technology means we should, after end of these slides, after end of this class, we should be able to understand how cognitive development, that means our cognitive developments basically aligns, okay? It basically aligns adaptive learning technologies, because nowadays we all have more PDFs than the physical book. So nowadays we do not ask anything from Google, rather we were used to talk or used to ask from ChatGPT. So basically we are adapting than before. Okay, so basically this refers to the cognitive development. We have developed our cognition. Cognition means basically the brain and the understanding how brain processes these three things: acquiring, processing, and storing. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Historical evolution of cognitive development theories. Let's talk about that. Okay, thank you. So, historical evolution of cognitive development theories. Here, early foundation, contribution to Jean Piaget, we already have talked about that, and Lev Vygotsky's 19th century. Basically, those two persons, Piaget and Vygotsky, have said that, okay, cognitive development, there is a thing that names cognitive development. So the early foundations stone were laid by Jean Piaget, the Frenchman, and Lev Vygotsky. Well, I do not know whether he's a Russian or not. Okay, no problem with it. So, shifts in perspective, transitions from stage-based to dynamic systems and neurocognitive approaches. So, before that, before Vygotsky and Piaget, we used to think that education actually held on a stage. That means a proper setting. Setting means where the thing is setting in. So education is based on one particular setting, but they basically, the first man, the founding fathers of metacognition and cognitive theories, that they have said, no, education do not have anything to do with those periphery or those setting. Rather, it basically held upon our memory and our brain, which is basically they're referring to as cognition, this brain. Okay, so shifts in perspective. Basically, from that time, the perspective, the looking, the way of looking has been shifted. That means has been changed. Okay, so for example, comparison of Piaget's fixed stage with modern dynamic development system theory. So they state some fixed stage. We have some fixed stage, some sensorimotor activities, and we all know that before today's class. At the previous class, we have talked about that. Yes, we know that. So basically, that was the founding fathers. They were the founding fathers, and that was the founding theory. But nowadays, some of the psychologists and scientists have argued that those theories are quite a bit improvised. Those theories should be improvised because our age basically do not work 100% just like that, the theory they have said. So basically, today and nowadays, dynamic development, this one thing, I want you to note it down, dynamic development is happening, okay? Rather than those classical conditioning, operant conditioning, we already have talked about that. We already know that operant conditioning and classical conditioning? Yes. You have to, because it could come to your midterm, or otherwise it will come to your final. Okay, so Piaget's theory on cognitive development and advanced stages, we already have talked about that. We all know that. So I want some of the persons would say, I would like to ask, pre-operational stage. Yes, pre-operational stage. Which age group does it refers? We have talked about that in previous class. Yes, we have talked about that. We have talked about that, haven't we? Yes, we have. Okay, from the easiest one. Sensorimotor activity stage. From which age group students basically belong to that? Yes, ma'am. Can you please enlighten us? Yes. Come on. Sensorimotor activity, sensorimotor stage. Which age group? Come on, ma'am. Say it again. Hey. First one. Sensorimotor. Neural correlates of object permanence. For example, studies using fMRI in infants. Well, infancy, we already have talked about that. Well, the answer is here, but in which age group? Infants. Sensorimotor, from which age group? Okay, no problem. Please sit down. No, sir, don't you know? You say, which age group? Sensorimotor. From? 0 to? Is it correct? 0 to 3? No. 0 to 3 is not correct. Okay. Now, I won't talk about that. Please, this is very much important for your midterm examinations. Each and every group, and you have to mention the age group of those sensorimotor group, or pre-operational group, or concrete operational group, or former operational group. Okay, you have to mention those age groups, and the slides have already been uploaded to your portal. The slides have already been uploaded to your portal. Okay, so we already have talked about that, so nothing, I do not think there's a new something in here. We already know Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Okay, so sensorimotor group, pre-operational. Okay, first sensorimotor came, then pre-operational, then concrete, then formal. We already have talked about that, so do not repeat that. Okay, so there's a critique from there. Let's talk about that today. Piaget's theory of cognitive development and its critique underestimates of early competence. That's more important thing. Research for infants' cognition by Largeon's research on infant cognition basically says maybe everyone. So by Largeon's research on infant cognition basically says maybe for some infants, for some rare cases, maybe one infant could surpass those stages, sensory motor, operant conditioning, formal conditioning. Maybe a boy or a girl who is 7 years old, I'm not saying, I won't say which age group he is, it's your duty to say, but maybe a 7 years old boy or a girl could be more mature than a 18 years old boy and a girl. Yes, to some extreme examples, to some extreme conditions, maybe that could happen. So by saying sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operational conditioning, with basically by setting those with age limits, that basically creates some problems, especially for those who are special. Yes, there are some special guys, there are some special boys and girls, maybe. So they will violate these rules. So by Largeon's research on infant cognition has said that theory. So okay, it's a good theory, no problem of it. Most of the cases it will fit in, but to some extreme cases it won't fit in. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that is one of the critics. So please, these critics are very much important for exams also, because if I say, okay, Piaget's theory of cognitive development, write those things and everything, and then write some critics. Do you think it is appropriate? Why or why not? So if I say why or why not, then you have to put some critics. So yes sir, it's really good, it's, I mean, great, but there are some critics against it. Okay, so limited acknowledgement of social and cultural variability. That's one of the most important critique for this Piaget's theory, because we have already talked about that. For some reason, if a boy or a girl's father and mother is socially, culturally, educationally developed and economically developed, so there's more likely to chance that the boy or the privileged kid, I would like to say, the privileged kid will have some extra prior knowledge within his brain or her brain. So basically, cultural or social variability basically affects on us. Really, our fathers and our mothers' social condition, economic condition, cultural condition, and educational qualifications basically shapes us to some extent. Well, I would like to say to a greater extent. I would like to say to a greater extent. Okay, because our father and our mother, basically our family, is the first pillar, is the first school, is the first university we get in our life. It's the first educational system we go through. We learn from our father and mother from the very childhood, from the early childhood. Even if we know that we are learning, we basically are learning from our father and mother. Am I correct?
Yes.
So basically, Piaget's theory of cognitive development have no place for this social and cultural variability, that education may vary from culture to culture. It based on many things: your father's education, your mother's education, your father's economic crisis, all affects our education. Okay, so Piaget's theory does not talk about that, and that's one of the most important lackings of Piaget's theory. So there are two critics I have said. Please remind those and remember those. Okay, so Lev-Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory, advanced applications. So basically, Lev-Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory and its core principles are: 1, social mediation, role of culture, tools, and language in shaping cognition. We already have talked about that. It is never possible, well, at the 95% cases, but extreme 5%, there's always an exception, and exceptions can never be the examples. Yes, that's right. So exceptions can never be the examples. So we will not talk about those 5% exceptions, but at the 95% of the regular and normal thinking or process, our society, our culture, tool, and language basically shapes our cognition. There's our teacher basically used to say this. In Bengali, there's a saying, or there's not saying, there's a word, porosrikator, which is absent in English. There's no word in English which reflects the exact value of porosrikator. Well, some of us, well, Obhiman also maybe Obhiman also, porosrikator, it basically our sir says that, and then he said, why does that happen? Then he said, because porosrikator, that means onner sri dekhiya je kator hoy, it actually only happens in our country or our subcontinent, our culture. That's right, it's cultural appropriate. So it doesn't happen maybe at the other parts of this whole world. So they do not have that vocabulary in their dictionary. Well, there's an example, another example also, protagonist. We already know that word, protagonist. There's no perfect Bengali for this word, protagonist. No, protagonist is not Charitra. Nayak could be a hero. Protagonist could be. No, protagonist could not be a Mul Charitra. Yeah, protagonist could be a side shadow, maybe. Protagonist is something which is not present, which is absent in Bengali vocabulary. See, because we do not have that thinking, we do not have that cognition. So language basically shapes our cognition, culture shapes our cognition, and tools also. Okay, so basically Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory talks about that. We already know that because of our example. Okay, so zone of proximal development. So zone of proximal development or zone of proximal development, anybody can say that? Okay, enhanced by peer scaffolding and teacher support. ZPD, basically peer supporting means a group work. Basically in a group, there's a student who knows one thing and another student knows another thing, and together they knows everything. Yes, that's right, sharing knowledge. So scaffolding means basically external support. Outweigh support or external support. Okay, scaffolding, we all know that, especially by construction. That's right, I already have talked about that, construction. Thank you. Okay, so zone of proximal development, basically does its work by scaffolding and teacher support. Teacher support basically one kind of scaffolding. Okay. So contemporary applications, basically this same theory is collaborative learning in higher education and its alignment with ZPD principles. Yes, we all know that we have group assignments, we have group presentations, we have collaborative studies. So these are basically the examples of contemporary application which collaborative learning in higher education. Well, it is applicable in higher education, or in other words, we say tertiary level education, not in primary, not in secondary. You know why? Because these are basically applicable to age appropriacy. Yes, that's right. So that's why we basically do that in most of the cases, not every case, but in most of the cases we do that in tertiary level education. Okay, integration in vital learning environments. Environments, not only the classroom, the AC. Environment means everything behind psychology also. Yes, the Friday class also. The traffic system of Friday, it also affects the psychology and the environment. Yeah, that's right. So, and your teacher also, you yourself also, your morning breakfast also, everything is included within the integration of vital learning through environments. Okay. So there's a critic also. There's a critic from Vygotsky's sociocultural theory, and the critic is saying that over-reliance on social factors, insufficient focus on biological contributions. Everyone, basically, some of us could say that over-reliance on social factors, that means we are basically relying on social factors. We are saying here, before some time we have said that if your father is a doctor and your mother is a businesswoman, then it's most likely you will become a great man. I mean, great in your cognition, or you will understand many things in comparison with a rickshaw puller girl or a rickshaw puller's boy. But that does not happen every time. Exactly. See, that does not happen every time, because biological contributions has a vital role to play. Biological contributions really have a vital role to play. Maybe in your gene, in your biology, you have that capacity, you have that capability that you can learn a language, you can solve a math problem way easier than a boy who is, or a girl who is already very much privileged. See, yes. These also happen, and for the most of us, maybe that could be a greatest example, that maybe we heard that GPA 5 for rickshaw puller's boy. Yeah. We already have heard that, yes. In medical examinations, Dhaka Medical College, in Dhaka Medical College, a rickshaw puller's boy got admission. See, we already know that by Pratham Alo. So these are basically the counter feed, the counter topic of sociocultural theory. Basically, biological contributions also have a role to play. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I would suggest everyone will sign, but please do not talk. Okay, so Jerome Berner's constructivist approach. So there's a new approach we will be talking about now. So it's a new approach, we haven't talked about that earlier. So modes of representation. Everyone, he basically says there are 3 modes of representation. So it's Jerome Berner's constructive approach. I would like you to take notes. Yes, that's right. So Jerome Berner's constructive approach basically helps us with 3 modes of representation. 1, 2, 3. Everyone. Modes of representation. First one, inactive. Second one, iconic. Third one is symbolic. Okay, what does that mean? Inactive. Action-based representations. Inactive means acting. Enable the action. Enacting means enable the action. So constructive approach means we construct. We basically learn by doing. Learning by doing. Constructive, we construct, we build. Okay, action-based representation using manipulatives in math education. See, in math education or in language also, in language we can manipulate, we can have examples, we can have stories as examples, so that they will manipulate our cognition, they will manipulate our behavior. In that reason, in that way, we can learn language better and effectively. So basically they are talking about that. Inactive mean enabling the action. Action-based representation, just like that. Okay, iconic, basically use of images and diagrams for understanding abstract concepts. See, if I want to show you, or if I want to if I want to make you understand the concept of democracy, which is an abstract idea. Okay, forget about democracy, it's very much a cliche, but if we talk about socialism or Marxism, if I just draw here a photograph of Karl Marx, if I draw his diagram, his class representation, class struggle, those things, then it could be the usage of iconic. Basically, iconic means using the icons, using the images to make understand you guys better. Yeah. to make yourself understand it better. So using action, using icon, that means symbols, and this icon and symbols are not that. Icons are basically images and diagrams, and symbols are advanced abstract thinking through language and symbols. Symbols means basically analogy. If I want to say, okay, do you know what is democracy? It's an abstract idea. So then I use symbols, just see, there's a jungle and there's a vote. There's a lion's party, there's a tiger's party, and there's a fox party. So in 3 parties, every other animals each one have 1 vote, and which party will rule. No matter which party is ruling, deer and hare basically will get caught and they will be preyed. See, no matter either the lion's party is in the power, either the tiger's party is in the power, no matter which party is in the power, the deer, the horin, the hare, the khargosh will be preyed, will be eaten by lions and tigers. See, these are basically the symbols. See, I have already talked about a great thing about democracy by basically those abstract ideas. I already have made you learn that, see, democracy in a jungle, lion's party, tiger's party, and we all are here deer. We do not belong to any party. See, this is how symbolic things work. Okay. So discovery learning encourages exploration, inquiry, and hypothesis generation. Basically, it helps modes of representation. Jeremy Berners' constructive approach basically helps discovering learning. So I basically want you guys discover more and more. Try it in Google, try it in your open eyes. Basically have an open mind so that everything could come to you. Everything could come to you. Then you could understand what do you know and what do you not know. Okay, for example, integrating case-based problem solving in medical education. Well, medical education in med school, we all know that in med school they give cases to the students and then they solve it. That means real life situations. Basically situation based and case based are quite similar. We have talked about situation based, haven't we?
Yes.
That's right. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, information processing model. Information processing model, that's one of the most important models for this cognitive development. Okay, information processing model, core components are input. There's an I, sorry for that. I do not know how that could get missed. Input, processing, output. Information processing model basically works as computer. Input, processing, output. Okay. Input is sensory registers. We get inputs to our sensory registers. Registers means organs. Here register means organs. Okay, processing working memory and executive functions. Functions basically here. Yes. That's right. And output long-term memory, storage and retrieval. Well, we learned some meanings of, for example, we learned some meanings and then we thought about that and then it's stored in our memory. Basically that's the output. So any time we hear that sound, we hear that trigger, it could come out from my mouth or from my writing. So basically that's output. Advanced focus on role of executive functions in self-regulated learnings. Basically it's self-compliance. That means self-study, self-reliance. I will rely on myself only. Basically they will talk about that. Cognitive load theory, that's the most important thing from this slide. Cognitive load theory, balancing intrinsic, extraneous and germane loads for optimal learning. Balancing intrinsic. Intrinsic means something which is not a part, which is your intrinsic. So internal, yes, internalized maybe, not internal. Okay, cognitive load theory basically we balance, we give here pressure in order to in order to learn new things, we give here pressure. It basically internalized, he said internal, that's right, basically to internalize some knowledge, some information so that it become my cognitive load. So whenever I put here some cognitive load, it becomes my education. Okay, clear about that? Cognitive load, we put here our cognitive load, then it becomes our education, our new knowledge, our new information. Okay. For example, designing multimedia lessons based on Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. So basically, cognitive development, cognitive load, we put here. So in this whole topic, the most important thing is cognitive load theory. If we put some cognitive load in our mind, in our brain, that becomes our education, our learning. Just like that, if we put some cognitive load in our mind, then it becomes the cognitive learning, it becomes the learning, it becomes the information we already possess, we already own. Okay, metacognition and self-regulated learning. See, metacognition means beyond cognition. Okay, let's talk about that. What is metacognition? Awareness and control over one's own learning process. So cognition means we know what to learn, we know how to learn, and metacognition means I know that the whole process is being used by me. So I know the process, I know the whole process, and I know what to do. Basically, doing is cognition, and knowing the whole process is metacognition. Doing is cognition. I am doing, I am putting some cognitive loads, and then I understand, I am learning new things. That is cognition. That means I am putting here some cognitive loads. And metacognition is I know the whole process. I know the whole process, it is metacognition, and I know I'm doing it, it is cognition. Okay, clear? There's a difference between cognition and metacognition. Okay, awareness and control over one's own learning process. So, awareness of learning process. Just forget everything. Awareness of learning process. And the learning process itself is cognition. And awareness of learning process is metacognition. Okay, so the components is planning, monitoring, evaluating. Planning, I am planning what is to learn. I'm monitoring if I am learning it properly or not. I am evaluating, well, I'm giving exams. So let's evaluate myself whether I have learned it or not. These are quite a bit easiest one, isn't it?
Yes.
Am I right? These are easiest one. Planning, monitoring, evaluating. Planning, well, I want to learn from 1 to 10, the numbers. Okay, I planned how to do that. Okay, done. Then I'm wondering whether I'm learning it or not. Yes, I'm learning it. I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Well, where is 7? No 7. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Oh well,
5.
Where is 5? See, that's monitoring. Then evaluating. Come on, take my exam. I'm here to evaluate myself. See, it's quite a bit easiest one. Okay, so use reflective journals. Well, these are basically not, these examples are useless. Basically, the hardest examples, but I have given you the easiest examples, Okay, so neuroscience and cognitive development, well, basically it is not very much important for your exams, but it is important you to know how these things work. Neuroscience, basically it comes from the biology, and it comes for the neurology students. So how basically brain works. Okay, it basically for doctors, but it will take no harm if we learn these. Okay, so role of brain structure, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, neuroplasticity. So these are basically those medical terms, please, these medical jargons. Neuroplasticity means your brain loses its plasticity after some ages. Then it finds difficulty to learn new things. That's why if we learn two or more languages in our childhood, then our elasticity, our plasticity of brain, for that reason we could have become the master of 2 or more languages. We could have become the master of 2 or more languages. So basically it's because of the neuroplasticity, how learning reshapes brain structure over time. So basically in infancy, in childhood, our brain has its best plasticity. Yeah, that's right. Towards the puberty. Maybe, yeah, that's right. Okay, so prefrontal cortex, executive functions and decision making. Prefrontal cortex, so basically our brain has 2 lobes and 4 parts, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. We all know that. So our decision making basically comes from the frontal part. They are basically saying that, well, there are some theories behind those, there are some logics, so but these, if I want to elaborate these, so it will become a biology class, so I do not want to make that. Okay. And then, so basically, I hope you guys will learn these, this slide from your home also, and please, if you are interested in these things, please do Google it, take help from your mobile. Yeah, that's right. So application in education, well, that's important for us. That's basically the biological structure, but that's important for us. Application in education, how neuroscience and cognitive development is interconnected, and how we basically apply those in education, in learning, in shaping our educational psychology. So mindfulness and its impact on neural pathways. So we have to study the neural pathways, so that I could say, okay, if I take this class in this way, if I take this class at 2 p.m., then maybe, or maybe not 2 p.m., maybe I should take this class at 12 p.m. 12 a.m. it's night, sorry sir. So 12 p.m. So maybe most of the students will have a full stomach. Maybe they will not have any nausea or any slippery head, anything, any drowsiness, any nausea, no problem. So I should basically, most likely, I could have their full attention. So my class would be impactful. So basically this is how application in education, neuroscience and its application works in the classroom, in the education. See, everything matters, nothing, even your full stomach also does matter. Okay, examples of brain-based learning strategies, these are no basically for you guys, these are for the doctors. Okay, but application in education, the mindfulness and its impact on neural pathways is for us. Mindfulness is important. Okay, we already have talked about that, but still, cultural and contextual influences of socioeconomic and cultural factors, role of parental environment, we already have many times, we already have talked about that. Language exposure and educational access, it's very much important, your fathers and mothers, education and economy, in order to shape your thought process, your psychology, your learning process and your language. Okay, so basically socioeconomic and cultural factors plays a vital role. Cultural and contextual influences, cross-cultural research basically has happened to that. Example, differences in cognitive development patterns between collectivist and individualist society. So basically there's a research on that. If a society is basically collectivist, that means everyone on that society basically thinks in a collective way, well, education or the psychology, what is their psychology? And if on the other hand, as a society where everyone basically thinks he's an individual, that means individualism applauded at that society, what kind of language or what kind of psychology basically they possess. There's a cross-cultural research on that, and that's basically still going on. Cultural and contextual influences is still going on, but some of the researchers have said, well, the individualist has more potentials, but some of the other individuals or some of the other researchers have said, no, maybe who belong to a collectivist cultural society, they have their own priorities. Well, it's a debatable issue. The research is also going on. Yes, I will come back to you, but not now. Okay, so there are challenges, navigates bias in testing and pedagogy. Basically still it's a challenge here, cultural and contextual influences, because if we want to examine the cultural context, it's more likely for us to get biased, because all of us belong to one or another culture. So it is more likely that we could become biased towards our culture. So basically for that reason, these cultural and contextual influences on metacognition theory does not get many praise. Okay. Technology and cognitive development, well, nowadays it is becoming a vital play a vital character for these periphery. Technology and cognitive development, model tools just like AI, it's gamification, it's gamification, virtual reality, VR. So basically modern tools are shaping our cognition, our metacognition, our brain cells and our brain development also. See, for that reason, a boy or a girl who's just past 2 years or 2.5 years can have more efficacy with a mobile, with a tab, with a laptop, more than our 60 years old parents or our grandparents. Huh? Am I right?
Right.
Those infants, 1.5 year or 2.5 year kids can open TikTok. Yeah, can operate a mobile, can search for YouTube videos. But our mother, our father, or our grandparents, they take very much hard time to do that. They really take so much efforts. They continuously ask us, okay, hey, come on, show me that video, search for me that video, search for me that recipe. Huh? Am I right?
Yes.
See, that's how technology and cognitive development is interconnected. It basically, technology basically is shaping our context, our culture, our mind also. This is how basically these things work. That's the greatest example ever. Okay, impacts. Positive impacts, enhances engagement, adaptability. Basically, I have talked about adaptability. So these kids are quite a bit adaptive to these AI, gamification, VR, but our parents or our grandparents basically are not adaptive because they have seen these tools when they cross half of their lifetime. But those infants are seeing these from the very first days of their life. So the plasticity, see, neuroplasticity, I've talked about that. So basically it's easier for them to adapt rather than to adapt for our parents or our grandparents. Yeah, adults, that's right. I mean, not young adults. We are young adults, but the elder adults. Okay, the concern, shorten attention spans. Well, that's important. Shorten attention spans and reduce critical thinking in tech-heavy environments. Yes, two most important drawbacks of today's modern technology. Number one, shorten attention spans, because TikTok, we just have an attention span of less than 10 seconds. Well, that is alarming, because in every 10 seconds we have Facebook Reels, we have TikToks, we have left swipe, right swipe. So these basically shortens our attention span. So we are young adults, maybe we can deal with some problems, but for those infants, they most likely have ADHD, attention deficiency. H is what? A hyperactive syndrome, maybe. Yes, that's right. Hyperactive syndrome. That's right. ADHD or okay.
Hyperactive disorder.
That's right. Hyperactive disorder. Sorry, and thank you for correcting me. Attention deficiency, hyperactive disorder, ADHD. They basically more likely to have that because of their shortened attention spans. For TikTok, for Facebook Reels, just like that, just for that. And then for that reason, basically it is interconnected. For that reason, critical thinking is reducing, because in order to think critically, we need to have a longer period of attention span. From some Japanese point of view, some Japanese scientists have researched that the greatest longer period of attention span could be 20 to 25 minutes, but nowadays it has lessened, it is reduced to 10 to 15 seconds. Well, that's why they are basically lacking the critical thinking. Well, that's very much of an alarming, because critical thinking is very much important for all of us, and for the educators, especially for the educators and the scientists. So they can never have ADHD or lesser kind of attention span. They have to at least maintain an attention span of over 15 minutes at least. Okay, so these are basically the critics. So technology has its good things and its pros and cons. That's right. Okay, so barriers and challenges in cognitive development. There are some barriers and challenges and learning disabilities. ADHD, which already have, we talked about that. Attention deficiency, hyperactive disorder, we already have talked about that. And then cognitive implications, learning disabilities. For that, these are basically the learning disabilities. For these reasons, we cannot learn, or nowadays the children cannot learn. Okay. The interventions, universal design for learning to create inclusive and educational environment. Basically, these prescriptions are for us educators. So we maybe have to design universal designing for learning to create inclusive. We will include all of them. And assistive technologies for specialized need. We can use those chat GPT, we can use those Facebook Reels for make them learn. Yes, they do have attention span of 10 to 15 seconds, but what if we make them learn some educational things within that 15 seconds and try to enlarge their spans from 15 seconds to 15 minutes? These are basically talked about that. Okay. And emerging trends and research nowadays, basically it's not for exam, but it is for your cognitive development. So dynamic system theory, these are basically coming. Dynamic system theory, impact of AI and machine learning, deep learning, deep fake. These are basically the trends of today's world. And future directions, basically bridging cognitive development research with neurotechnological tools. So basically scientists are trying to improve one system that we do not have to speak, rather we will think, and then it will transmit to your brain with some technologies. Maybe I should put somewhere at here, and you all should put somewhere, and then we will not talk, then it should be transmitted to your brain. Then it could be one important, I mean, it could be helpful for us. Even if you guys are not talking, I'm sure not 100% of your attention basically in here. So for that reason, or by doing that, I can hear your thoughts also. Even if someone is saying, oh, well, my stomach is hurting. Someone is saying, well, I want to go home. Someone is saying, oh, hey, what a boring class, I want to sleep. Exactly. See, it could be transmitted to me also. So basically the future direction directing towards that position. Okay, so AI and machine learning, we already have talked about that. Please, hey everyone, I will upload it into your portal. Please do reading. Okay, so summary and conclusion, we already have notes that please, theories provided, frameworks and understanding cognitive growth, we already have done that. And integrating research into teaching practices, fostering meaningful learning, we already talked about that. Future focus is basically interdisciplinary approaches combining psychology, neuroscience and education. It's an interdisciplinary. Psychology is from psychologists, neuroscience is from scientists and the biologists, from the doctors also, and education is for us, the educators. Okay, so references, these are some references book from basically we done our today's slide, and thanks for bearing with me. So that's the end of today's class. Thank you.